Hey guys, Black Eyes Gamer coming to you with my first comparison video. You might be asking, what am I comparing? Well, I recently bought this guy right here, the ASUS RTX 2080. What am I going to be comparing it to, you might be asking? The GTX 1060. Now, honestly, there's no comparison between the two. The RTX 2080 is going to be a lot better than a 1060. So there are several things I want to do with this video. The first thing I want to do is I want to compare the specs between the two graphic cards. I'm going to unbox the RTX 2080 because I haven't seen it for myself yet. I'm going to have both of the GPUs side by side so you can see how different they are visually. And I'm also going to play some video games so you can see the performance for each of the graphics cards. Enough with the small talk though. Let's go over the specs for each of the graphics cards. The GTX 1060 has GDDR5 6GB VRAM, CUDA cores of 1280, 1 DVI output, 2 HDMI outputs, and 2 DisplayPort outputs. It has a memory interface 192-bit and a fan stick size of 2.1. Now the RTX 2080 is definitely a lot stronger than the GTX 1060. It has a GDDR6 8GB VRAM, CUDA cores of 2944, 1 USB Type-C port, 1 HDMI output, and 3 DisplayPort outputs. Memory interface of 256-bit, and a fan stick size of 2.7. From personal experience, I would advise against using a micro ATX motherboard. This graphics card is huge and it might be too big for the motherboard, so definitely consider using an ATX motherboard. Now that we got all the specs out the way, let's go ahead and open this bad boy. Whenever I do buy ASUS, it comes in a nice box inside the box. Look at this, it looks beautiful. So inside this nice box, the first thing you're going to see is the RTX 2080 itself. It looks really nice. Taking a first look at the RTX 2080, it looks a little bit more gray than black. If you look at any of the websites that sell in this product, it looks black on the images, but when you look at it in person, it looks a little bit more gray. The RTX comes with an instruction manual to set it up, and it also comes with a CD for the GPU tweak too if you want to overclock it. Alright guys, there it is, the RTX 2080 in all of its beauty. So the next thing I want to do is take out the GTX 1060 from my computer. I just about have this out. Let's go ahead and compare the two graphic cards. So looking at the GTX 1060 from this angle is definitely wider than the RTX 2080. However, the RTX 2080 is definitely taller than the GTX 1060. However, if you look from this angle, the RTX definitely is bigger than the GTX. There is a huge difference in the back between the two GPUs. The GTX 1060 doesn't have backplating, the RTX 2080 does. Alright, let's get the RTX 2080 into my computer. The RTX 2080 is officially unboxed and is now installed into my computer. Now what I really want to show you guys, and the most exciting part of this video, is showing you the performance difference between the GTX 1060 and the RTX 2080. So the system that I'm going to be using is enclosed. The CPU that I'm using is a Ryzen 7 2700X at 3.7 GHz. The motherboard that I'm using is the MSI B350M Gamer Pro Micro ATX. I have 2 sticks of memory at a total of 20 gigs. One stick is 16 gig, one stick is 4 gig, both running at 2400 megahertz. The thermal take 700 watt PSUs when I'm using to power everything, and I'm going to be using this on the Windows 10 Home operating system. The gameplay between the GPUs will not align with each other, so the gameplay between the GPUs will be at different points. How the games are being displayed is from the least demanding to the most demanding. So the least demanding games are going to start off first, such as Resident Evil and Final Fantasy, and we're going to work our way up to Doom and Monster Hunter World. All of these games are being played at their highest graphic settings with anti-aliasing off. So yes, there is a huge difference in performance between the 1060 and the 2080. The 2080 definitely performs a lot better than the 1060. But let's go ahead and take a look at some numbers between the two. Resident Evil 6 was the first game that I ran. Can easily do QHD and HD, no problem on the 1060. But once you start to get into UHD on the 1060, it starts to have some trouble, but it can still push more than 60 frames per second. Once you start to use the RTX to 2080, it can run Resident Evil 6 without any issue. Final Fantasy XII ran great on the 1060 as well on QHD and HD, but once you start to get into UHD, it starts to drop at frame rates below 30. When you use the RTX on Final Fantasy XII, 60 frames per second almost all the way through. Fallout 4 also did very well on the 1060, still pushing more than 50 frames per second in HD and QHD. Once you get into UHD on the 1060, it starts to have some issues, but if you switch it out with the RTX 2080, 60 frames per second almost all the way through, averaging 59, which is really good. Doom runs really well on the GTX 1060, doing 94 frames per second in HD, and in QHD doing 63 frames per second. Even in UHD, doing 43 frames per second is really well as well. But once you switch out with the RTX, you're doing over 100 frames per second in QHD and HD, and in UHD you're doing 70 frames per second. Monster Hunter World was a bit of an issue. In HD on the 1060, only pushing 42 frames per second, QHD 24 frames per second. It was so demanding in UHD that I couldn't even record the gameplay, but I was able to get some stats, 15 frames per second in Monster Hunter World. Now on the RTX, you average 81 frames per second in HD, QHD you're looking at 67, and UHD looking at 32 frames per second. And remember, these are all at max settings, so if you want to get over 60 frames per second in Monster Hunter World playing in UHD, lower your graphics settings and you should be all good to go. Now with the average GPU temperatures, the GPUs were not overclocked. The GTX does run a lot cooler than the RTX, however the RTX is pushing a lot more power, which results in higher temperatures. All degrees is being measured in Celsius. Now my frames per dollar is based on the average frame rates for every resolution on each GPU. As you can see, the titles that I was using to test this was not too demanding, but either way, the frames per dollar is doubled between the RTX and the GTX. The GTX is giving you 5.4 frames per the dollar, while the RTX is giving you 10.8, which is a great difference between the two. Keep in mind that the frames per dollar is based off of the games that I played, which are on weaker titles. If you play more demanding titles, your frames per dollar could change. So should you buy the RTX? Yes. If you're trying to do 4K gaming, definitely get the RTX. If you can't afford the RTX, get the 1080 Ti. If you are doing HD gaming, definitely stick with the 1060. The 1060 is a great HD gaming GPU, and there's no need to upgrade from that, unless you want to go to the 1070 if you need a little bit more power. Alright guys, I really do hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe to my channel for more videos, comment and let me know how I can do better or what you want to see next, and as always, I do appreciate you guys for viewing. Thank you. If you guys enjoyed this video, you definitely will enjoy my other videos. Go ahead and click on the picture to go to those videos and see what the unboxings are like.